Let's get it going. Hey, everybody. My name is Dan. I'm your host here on the Spiritual Underground podcast. If you're just now bumping across our podcast, we are primarily 12-step recovery based, but I do bring other teachers in and feel very. I've recently found something out that because the word spiritual is in my podcast, I believe that's the way people are finding me. They're not looking for a 12-step recovery podcast. They're looking at this whole thing about, and here's my premise, is that when we were born with perfectly clean spirits, our soul was clean. If you find a picture of you when you were 5 years old, you were completely happy, joyous, and free. You didn't worry about tomorrow. You didn't worry about what was going on today. And then what happens is the world steps on your spirit, puts boot prints on it, and we end up with bullying and maybe parents that are not parenting as well as they should, and various other things that cause our spirit to be actually sick. And the big book, 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, talks about us being spiritually sick, and it's an illness, and we have to heal from that. And I don't think anybody really escapes. There might be a few that shoot through the funnel and don't have that happen to them, but I don't think too many do. And specifically, the 12 steps are a modality that allows you to heal from that and to get back in touch with your own spirit and become the person you're supposed to be. The universe wants you to be. I think we all deserve that. And at some level, I believe that might be on purpose, that we have to go through this gauntlet in order to become who we are supposed to be. And so, what I do is I invite people on this podcast that can help us with that and can talk about healing that spirit. And I always just use my gut on what I get. Lots of emails from people that want to be on the podcast, and frankly, sometimes it just doesn't seem like a fit, but sometimes it does. And my guest today, Robert Cassidy, is the one of the guys that tickled my spirit and said, "Yeah, let's talk to this guy and see what he's got to share with us." How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Dan?
I couldn't be better. I have a There's an AA speaker. Have you ever listened to any AA speaker tapes?
Yes, and I've been in AA as well. Not
Okay.
personally, but I've been as an observer.
Yeah, good. Uh, I have a guy that touched me some 11 or 12 years ago, and I've been 10 years sober, but this guy touched my soul through audio. And I think that maybe AA speaker tapes might have been the first podcast. That
Mm.
might have been because this is all over the place now. But this guy really touched me, and some years, no, 2 or 3 years ago, I reached out to him and asked him if he'd be on my podcast with one of them, gut wrenching kind of feelings. You're like, "Ah, and he got
Yeah.
back with me and he said, "Yeah, man, sure, I'd love to be on your podcast." And he come in, and it was a little bit of an idol worship thing, man, because this guy has taught me so much, and he has no idea that he taught me what he's taught me because his speaker tapes out there on the net uh, got into my heart. And this is the second time he's wrote a new book, and I invited him again. So yesterday I had him on the show again, and I don't know. Again, just being in contact with guys who are a force for the good, because you watch
Mm.
TV and you watch a lot of stuff. You'd think, pardon my French, you'd think stuff is going to shit. This world is going to shit, and I don't
Mm.
believe it because I believe the light will overcome the dark. My buddy Scott Lee, who was on my podcast yesterday, I'm still high off of that. Mm.
I can
Uh,
I can see it. I can feel it.
yeah, it's so fun. And he's 81 years old, and I tried to impress upon him how much he means to me because I think that's important. That this man no real motivation came into this 45, now I'm 55-year old's heart and allowed him to make a decision to get sober and change my life by listening to his tapes that were out there on the internet. And it's powerful.
I think it's really, and we were talking about it a little before we started recording, but it's really the beauty of of this current age that we're in, where yes, there's like an abundance of information and it can be overwhelming and there's a lot of noise. Some of that noise can be negative. But if you choose to focus on the stuff that's positive, there's just so much incredible stuff that I think about what it would have been like for me back in, I don't know, like if I was in 1920. I would really only be relying on the people in my immediate proximity in order to influence me for good. And sometimes that could be great because I'm in proximity with incredible people, or if I'm in a place where it's hard to expand beyond the reach of that sort of that environment. Now we get to choose our environments and we get to do it through podcasting and through the sort of access to information that we have. And it sounds like is it correct that this person, Scott Lee, touched you 10 years ago through a tape and now you get to speak with him? It's like there is so much there is so much good in the world and we just have to focus on it and tune into it, you know?
I've heard people say, one guy brought to me that you got to focus on the signal and not the noise.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And the noise is what's trying to screw me up. And the signal is it's coming in and trying to talk to me. And today I have that ability, just like, just exactly like only nothing but an email from you. And I can already tell, I can already feel your vibe
Hmm.
that this is somebody I want to talk to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it allows that filter to develop to allow you to communicate with the people that are bringing the signal and avoid those who are just bringing noise.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really important right now, I think, to just focus on the person that you want to be in the world and trust that that's a positive thing and a positive influence in the world. Because like in all things, I think there is that duality, where there's good, there's bad, and where there's bad, there's good, and you just got to keep focusing on the good and keep being
Yeah.
that example for yourself, I think, fundamentally.
Yeah. And
Um,
sometimes what you don't, sometimes what you think is going to be not so good ends up being great. So you
yeah.
can't always you can't always depend on that.
No, and I
So
think time's a great teacher there, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me a little about yourself, your upbringing. What brought you into a point that you're out here talking to a guy like me, trying to help other people be better versions of themselves?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sydney, Australia, beautiful family, pretty run of the mill. If I was to kind of like give a background of me and the short of it, it's kind of like I've always been someone that has looked up to other people in my life, whether it be older brothers, role models in my life. My whole I've always been looking for examples of people to follow. I was a big impersonator of people growing up. I would impersonate people. There was something that was always searching for something outside of myself, always, always, and it led me into performance art. It led me into all sorts of different fields, creatively, predominantly. Um, and I've traveled the world doing that. I've gone over to New York and spent some time out there, and really just without going into too much detail, and I think as it relates specifically to the sort of book that I've written, it's this, my life is characterized by a duality of both looking outside of myself for answers from other people, and then also trying to be that person for myself,
Mm.
right? To not need the answers, right? To be the one that I'm essentially looking for. And so I think if I look at my life, I think, we're in relationship with other people. And I think the beautiful thing about living in the time that we're in right now is we get to be exposed to all these different ideas and learn and grow and take on different advice from others. But at the end of the day as well, you have to come back to yourself. And I
It's
think
an
that's been
inside job.
yeah. But the part of the fun of life is the inside job kind of buffering up against the outside, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point. There's no point for a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think in the past, I've always been kind of conflicted by that. This sort of like, why am I looking for answers outside of myself? And potentially having a lot of uh criticism towards myself around those ideas, but I think that is kind of necessary. It's a necessary part of the growth of a person is to search outside and then to bring it back and to constantly go out and in, and realize that there's a dance there and that there's something fun in that. And that if mastering that dance of absorbing the world around you and then also trusting yourself, when you're able to walk the line between those two, I think that's the sweet spot where you feel both like a student and a teacher.
Dude, I like that. Yeah, because I'm unable to like do this healing required of me in order to get over my addiction and my alcoholism and the things that I was telling myself over drinking. I'm unable to do that by myself. I can't just
Mm.
sit in the closet and do that. I need outside people to do that in order to help me inside, in order to understand what was making me tick and what was making me to create unhealthy patterns over and over again. Yeah, I totally dig what you're saying. I get that.
And then I would question for you, like, once you realize outside of yourself what it is that you have to do internally in order to come to a state of, I guess, like oneness with yourself, then the task is you, and it's really for you to step into and no one else, because no one else can do it for you. You quickly learn in this world, at least I did, that um, while there's a lot of people guiding the way, no one at the end of the day is coming to save you. You have to be that person.
Yeah. Yep. In 12-step recovery, we delve into the idea that there's a power greater than ourselves. And a lot
Mm,
of people reject that from a standpoint of God or religion or whatever. But through this, I have connected with something that I vacillate on whether if it's a higher self
mm,
or some power outside of me. And then I quit worrying about that and just locked into the value of it and what it was doing for me. And today I'm still not sure. I think it's some of both. I really do. I think it's some of both. I look back at the traditional Christianity stuff about the Trinity, and it's the Son, uh, the Father in Jesus. I think they say Son, Father, Holy Ghost, or something like that. And I look and I thought, wow, some of this power I'm locked into is me. Some of this power is something outside that I don't understand. And some of this power is a community of us with a common goal and and when we get together, there's something that happens while we're communing together. I have a fantastic men's home group of AA guys that I just no way to put in words exactly what they are, but a bunch of men who are trying to be better day by day and support one another. And that's a piece of my battery charger too,
mm,
is
mm.
locking into that community of fellas But I know, like right now, you know what Discord is?
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, I could tap into my Discord app and tell and say, "Hey guys, I need help," and I can promise you, 10 to 12 to 15 men would come over to my house and be here for me. And knowing that gives me some gives me something I ever knew never knew I needed. And I also know that when I check into that, one of those guys say, "Hey guys, I need some help. I need somebody to talk to." Hell, it could be moving a couch. It doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, I need help. Well, then I would get in my car and I would go over and help that dude. And to knowing that I have this community and this connection with some power greater than myself I don't understand, and also some being in touch with an inner higher power, uh, it elevates me to some spot that, you know, again, it's really tough to put into words what that is, you know, and try to like convince somebody of where I'm sitting at today with those elements in place in my life.
It feels like an active dialogue with life. It feels like you in communion with life,
Yeah, there you go.
you know? And to realize that you're not alone in it. And I think more than ever, people need to realize that you're not alone in this.
Yeah, we're here for you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
From your
lonely
higher
place to
power.
be.
Mm,
That my piece of my life when I was sitting at home alone was uh, that isolation, and that was terrible. It just crushed me to think that I was here all alone and I didn't have anybody. Uh, about that time, you know, my alcoholism had taken away my marriage. I've been married for 17 years. I've been with her for 17. I had an 8 and 10-year-old kid, and the bottom dropped out, man.
mm.
And I sat in this house, uh, same house, fully believing that I had been completely abandoned in my life, and a part of my bottom of having hit that bottom in order to start reaching out and asking for help from people, uh, to help pull me up out of that hole. It's an awful place to be, and so many people are. And I'll say this: men in our age groups, and I will bet I'm a little older than you, but I will still say that span are
Mm.
struggling today. I watch so many of them feel so alone and so lack of connection. And they want to get it from women generally. You know, they think that's the answer. And it may be, but this group of men that I get to hang out with, do things with, have saved my life, is what they've done. For being a part of it, an active part of it.
And it's reintroducing community, right? Which unfortunately, you know, as we've come into a more modernized society, that we've kind of seemed to have left that.
Mhm.
You know, indigenous cultures around the world have always, I mean, it's the idea of the self is almost not even considered. It's sacred for sure, but it's like the community is so important because you see yourself in community. You see yourself reflected back to yourself through the people you're in relationship with. I mean, back way, way, way in the evolution of humanity, if you were rejected from the tribe, you would die.
You would
And
die.
not just physically by the sort of animals around you or the harshness of the wilderness you're in. They did studies on this that in certain traditional tribes, I think specifically, I forget whereabouts in Africa, a lot of people would die from the emotional and psychological pain of being completely knowing that they were exiled.
And there's been studies that they split off kids, brand new newborns, and they
Yeah,
didn't touch certain newborns, and other newborns got touch. And they had to cut off the study because the kids who weren't getting touched would die. And that was not the point of their. We need connection. We really do. We
we
need
do.
touch.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
home group is also a hugging group.
yeah,
And
yeah,
new guys can't, they're not real cool with that. I was
yeah.
talking to Scott yesterday. I said, sometimes these new guys feel like they're trying to land a butterfly on my shoulder. And then
Mm.
my, the guys I've been around with a lot, we squeeze one another. We embrace one another. And,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
need that touch. I need it. Right now, I don't have a woman in my life. And Scott Lee, as I talked to a minute ago about yesterday, he brought something to my table that I'm I'm not getting a need met by that. I'm not getting that physical touch need met by not
Mm.
being in a relationship at this moment in my life. And I'm not going to go out and try to patch that band-aid right now. But
Right, right.
it was interesting because that has been something I've been feeling at some level, and I couldn't feel it, see it until he mentioned it yesterday. Uh,
Yeah. And I would say, look, just from personal experience, for me, I've got to fill that gap for myself before I go find it outside of myself.
Pour from an
Otherwise,
empty cup.
yeah. And otherwise, I will just always be trying to find holes to fill in. You know what I
Yep,
mean? And
yep,
there's no bottom, there's no bottom to that. And so I've got to give it to myself first, always. Um, And I think that's been the big journey of my life is to like before trying to find it out there because it's fun. That's not to say that we don't have relationship with others or we don't go, find a partner or whatever it is. That's like life. That's why I'm here. I'm here to be in relationship with other people. But I have to be first and foremost okay in myself before I find that, or else they're filling voids for me. And that's unfair. I will suck the life from the person. And that's not what I want to do. I don't want to need to find someone else in order to validate something that I'm feeling because all of a sudden I'm not seeing that person for who they are. I'm seeing them for what they can give to me.
yeah,
And so as long as I'm okay and I'm full in myself, right? If I've got that foundation, then when I come into relationship with people, it's like because I don't need anything from them, I can actually see them. And what I see is their life and their energy and the sort of and the literal light that's pouring from their pores. I think we become disconnected from that because unfortunately, the world that we're in, we're told so much that we're lacking, we're lacking, we're lacking. And so then when we go out into the world, we try to find people to fill that lack, and we don't see the beauty in them because all we're seeing is the potential for them to feel something that we feel that we don't have. But it's literally like I'm looking at you right now and I see the light like coming out of you. Like it's just like you've got so much. Everyone, we're so unlimited. And through our own conditioning, and you can go through the history, whether it's from the conditioning we get when we're kids to the social conditioning that we get when we're finding our way in the world. We're told that we've got to fill a hole. And
yeah,
I'm guilty of this. This is the thing that I'm working on right now. And it's kind of the purpose of this book. It's like when you start to give whatever you're seeking in the outside world, when you start giving that to yourself first, creating that relationship with yourself first, then you go out in the world, and then it's just like it's just it's enjoyment. It's enjoyment without conditions.
I get that, man. There's another analogy. It talks about there's like and I will use it this way just because, but there's a hole in our self that we can by no means feel. I can't feel it, but there's things outside of myself because in my book tells me self-centeredness, selfishness, all that, that's the root of my problem is that I'm too self-absorbed. I want to fix me. I want to do things for me. And when I get out into the world and start allowing other people to help fill me and then also pour my uh, compassion and empathy into them, then my hole becomes filled. I become I become whole again because I'm out there doing other being other centered.
Mhm.
And it's a funny balance to be there's a big piece of me that I am required to take care of myself and to be concerned with this and me. But there's also a piece of me that needs to be concerned with you. And if
Mm,
that's out of balance, then I won't be I just won't feel okay. I'll need something else. I'll need her.
mm,
I'll need a dope. I'll need whatever. But when I get that imbalance, which is not so easy, then I'm okay with both you and me. And, and I feel that homeostasis where I'm like, okay, this is where I want to be. Right here's where I want to be. This is cool. That's good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you see the person for the person that you're with, rather than what they are to you.
Right. What they can offer to me or what I
Right.
can give
What?
to them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Tell me a little about your book. What, oh, boy, that was a mess. I just knocked my external hard drive off the side of my table. Got too many cables in this place. Tell me a little about your book.
All right. Yeah. The self-discovery journal. It really, it's kind of, it's everything that we're talking about right here. Um, it's that relationship between you and the outside world. It's like, it's a book that hopes to recognize that there's so much to learn from other people, right? There's so many gurus, teachers, icons of history that have come before us that we can learn from. But it's really important to start defining their teachings from your own perspective. I think for me personally, earlier in life, I was like a sponge for information. And that's it, like it's a really beautiful thing. It's like I would humble myself before others and I'd take it on, like, but it created this sense of needing to be validated from someone else. And it didn't really trust any of my own instincts or my own intuitions or any of my own feelings about whatever areas of life. And so in the book, I define these 5 areas of life. There's health, there's wealth, there's spiritual, mental, and relationship, right? These 5 pillars of life. And really, this book is a journaling process in which you learn from 50 of some of the world's most incredible teachers, from Buddha to Jesus to Oprah Winfrey to Jean-Michel Basquiat. It's just a full spectrum across these 5 pillars. And just very simply, every day, it's taking a little bit of their wisdom, but then going, okay, great. Here's a quote from Da Vinci. Cool, but what does that mean to you? Because at the end of the day, this is your life, you know? And it's really great to stay humble and to be a student, but you have to also at some point go, you know, what does this mean for me? And so this journaling process is really coming out of a place where, I would journal and I'd be like, well, I feel like I could use a bit of guidance here. And then I would go to guidance and feel like, well, what does that mean to me? And it's about striking the balance between learning from others and what does your own gut say. And so it takes you through the steps, and each day is just small little entries, just really trying to get a clearer understanding of where you sit, like, with these pillars in life.
I just read a book called The Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah,
Do you know that book?
I
Ken
don't.
Follett. Uh, for whatever reason, and I listen to them. I don't really read them, but I feel that I read them. I read about 100 books a year, and
Wow.
it's been really good for me in the past bunch of years to absorb that. Uh, and I believe in reading books. I think that's something, you know, we're just not much good to ourselves, really, unless we're doing something to like improve. And journaling has been something that I am totally on board with, but have never been able to keep up a practice. I've had
Hmm.
sponsors, in post-set recovery, we sponsor guys, right? And I encourage them to journal. And some of them just go way deep into it and they really find a place with them inside themselves where journaling is really helping them. But I've just never found a place where I just never have been able to, just never been able to get a hold of it and do it. Although I fully and wholly believe in the value of it. It's like, well, how can you feel that way, Dan, but yet not do it?
Well, look, I'll be honest. It's like it might not be for everyone, you know?
That's what I have to lay back on is that it's just not for me. I do it
Totally.
sometimes. And a
Yeah,
big piece of the 12 step, in our fourth step, which is where we make an inventory of our lives, we did a great deal of journaling. We write down, basically, I coach people to write down everything that had an impact on who they are today. These people, these institutions, these principles, this stuff that has had an impact on who you are today. And guys, write 100 to 300 items in that list. And I did so too. And so uh, that is journaling. That's exactly what that is. And then we look at why they're on my list and run through some other ideas about how they affected us and then what was our part in it and journal our way through that fourth step. So it's I feel kind of funny saying I don't like to journal, but I teach people to do it on a
to
fairly
do it.
regular
Yeah.
basis. So
Yeah,
yours is a guide on helping people learn to journal. Your book,
basically. Yeah, it's to create a sort of a way of doing it as well, where you're not alone on the journey.
right?
Do you know what I mean? I think so
Yeah.
often, I think for people who previously don't like journaling, you look at a blank page and you go, you know, shit, where do I start? What do I say? And then it can become this sort of, sometimes it's good, sometimes that becomes like a flow of consciousness. You just let it all out. Otherwise, it's like staring at a blank page and you go, I don't know. And so this in just very small, succinct steps, you're learning at the same time as you're writing, so you're consolidating knowledge. That's a big thing. This book is filled with over like 100 quotes and prompts from some of the most incredible sort of thinkers of history. And so it's taking that and going, cool, here's 3 to 4 sentences. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. How does this relate to me? How can I use it today? It's just keeping it very short. It's about creating a dialogue with yourself. It's about putting pen to paper in a very small and achievable way. But in that way, you can see the small progress and like little dominoes, they start to fall. And by the end of the journey, the end goal is to go, whoa, okay, I've learned so much. And just through doing this practice, uh, I have a sharper understanding of myself and where I sit in the world. And I feel like I can articulate that.
Yeah,
And
I think
here's the proof.
and you do have that proof as a written record of what you've done and talked about with yourself. I think journaling and meditation are a lot the same in that we hang ourselves up on like the quality of it. Like, am I doing it good or not? And it doesn't matter how good you are at it. That's not the point. Everybody tells me, I'm just really not good at meditating. Well, the point of meditation is not to be good at it. And the same thing with journaling. I don't think that the point of journaling is to be good at it. There's some value in just doing it. And it will bring some stuff to the forefront of your life that you wouldn't get had you not just done it. And the same thing with meditation.
And look, what you're saying there is so interesting. It's just it's the symptom of the society we live in. We're told so often what's good, bad, right, wrong. Like it's just how we've been raised, unfortunately. And look, it's not to discount its benefit in the outside world, but like these practices, they have nothing to do with good, bad, right, wrong. Oh, you do. Oh my God. There's no metric, and there's not supposed to be a
Exactly.
metric. That's what makes it such a, I don't know about you, but when I approach these practices, that's what makes it so like I'm just sitting here and I can't get it wrong. And
It's
how much fun
free,
is that? Oh
I don't
my
have to worry
God.
about whether if I'm doing it right or not.
No, no one's seeing it. No, I think the journaling thing is funny because I think if you grew up in a sort of like westernized country, anything that was journaling growing up was homework, you know? And so often we feel like someone's going to see it, someone's going to grade it, someone's going to, mark it. Is my handwriting neat? What does that say about me? Just all the sort of mind noise that comes in from just growing up in a society where we would come to school, we'd write a story that came from the heart, and it was graded. Like, what? You're telling me you're going to take an 8-year-old's recount of his day and you're going to put a number on that? So I think that's what we have to let go of that relationship to the process of writing or meditating or whatever it is. And just to be easy on yourself at the end of the day, because look, uh, we've been conditioned in a world to just gauge everything in our lives by some sort of, this is going to be judged. This is and religion brings, and I'm not discounting religion, but like some
I
of
get
the
it.
negative impacts of religion is it's you're going to be gauged on this, you're going to be judged on this, or society, you're going to be judged on this, and we have to let go of that. We have to let go of that.
Yeah, we get so tied into all of it. And there's some ropes that really are binding to whether if I'm adhering to this or that and what that's gonna mean to me everlasting.
Mm,
And it's all bullshit. It
yeah, really
really
are.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
It is. Um, you know, I have religious trauma in my background. And it wasn't like trauma like I was beat or molested or anything like that. The trauma is that I couldn't register what they were saying with what landed in my child's heart.
Mm.
And I was going, this just don't sound right. You know, uh, this is your loving father, and if you don't do what he's saying, you're gonna burn in hell. It's like, hold on, that just don't register with me. Uh, and I heard other messages like that that blocked me off from having a relationship with this universal power that I do believe today is out there and is looking out for my good and is not that. It is wanting to help me. It's wanting to uh, allow me to align myself to my true compass north so that I can walk the walk that I've been placed here on earth to do. And today I fully know that I'm doing that. Today I know I'm doing that. Too many times do I get the signal. that, Dan, you are exactly where you're at, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And it's overwhelming.
Mm.
It's not an easy position to get to.
No,
Uh,
it's not. You have to let go of a lot of stuff, right?
yeah. Yep. And my journey come into helping other people.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's really when my 12-step sponsor took me through this work and then expressed to me that he expected me to help other men go through this work. At first, I was a little bit like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. And and he kind of nudged me towards doing it. Once I started doing it, I got addicted to it. It's almost like my former addictions. I was like, hey, I like this. This is good. And then a few years later, yoga came into my life, and I just fell in love with yoga. And they asked me to come to yoga teacher training. And something in my heart said, yes, go do that. And I went and did that. And that gave me more tools. And that's where I got the true north concept. Was that when I'm in true north with my true self, then everything's in alignment and things work out. And good things happen. And my relationships flow smoothly. And when I'm in that true north with my personal concept of it, things go well. And it's like, oh, why would I argue with that? Let's jump into that lane
Mm.
and
Mm.
and sink into it. But that's not so easy. It isn't so easy.
No, and hey, look, it's also it sounds like from talking with you, it's the process of it's a journey.
It's
And
a journey.
it takes a lot of hitting rock bottom. It takes a lot of, okay, let me just show up here. It's showing up to that first meeting or that first yoga class and coming in, you know, humbled and kind of eyes darting around, trying to avoid everyone's gaze. You
With
got to
an
go
open
through
heart
that.
and open spirit.
I mean, so many times in my life, I've gone into the rooms that ended up changing my life forever. I walked into the room at the start of that time, uh, almost crawling through the door, hoping nobody saw me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there was something that would bring you closer to whatever it is that you're trying to find in that room, you know? And yeah, and then the more you do it, the more you do it, all of a sudden that true north that you're talking about, that true north starts speaking to you every day. You know, it's like you start to know that you're in a dialogue with your life. You're looking around and you feel it inside of yourself and you see it outside of yourself, you know?
Yep. You
As
do.
within, so without, you know?
Amen. Yeah. You know, my it's tomorrow night, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm celebrating 10 years of continuous sobriety. And my the lady that has become a great friend of mine, dear friend of mine, he's my financial advisors because I was a engineer for 28 years, and then when I was 24 years sober, they tapped me on the shoulder and said they didn't need me anymore. And and this is later than that. And I didn't. It was a little bit of a shock, but I knew I needed to get that money out there, and I knew a lady who could help me do that, and she did that. Now we are friends on that spectrum, but she is the first person that I ever walked up to and said, "Hello, my name is Dan." She said it to me. I just parroted back to her. She said, her name is Becky, and I'm an alcoholic. And I said, I'm Dan, I'm an alcoholic. I just parroted it back to her, not knowing anything about what alcoholism really was. And I'm meeting her for dinner tomorrow night and she's going to join me for my 10-year celebration. And
Wow.
eh, I have what I call a miracle list in my phone. My sponsor recommended me to do this, and my listeners are probably tired of hearing it, but I love sharing it. These things that have happened in my life since I changed my compass needle to another direction really can't be thought of as anything but miracles. Uh, Things just started going right for me in my life when I took this approach, and I look back through it when once in a while when I think that maybe God has dumped me off at this bus stop and that's the end of it. Uh, yeah, and I look back through it. Uh, for instance, I was supposed to go to prison for 6 to 20 years for breaking in houses, stealing pain pills, and I ended up getting sentenced to a 1 year of home incarceration, and that really was the turning point of what made me decide to stop drinking. Although I didn't want to stop, I didn't want to get sober. Really, I knew not getting sober would not be a good move towards achieving that goal and not going to prison. And I was supposed to go to. I told them they didn't want me to do it at my house because I had got caught broken into a house across the street from me, and so all the neighborhood wanted me to go to prison, not here. They didn't want me. They didn't feel safe, and so I wrangled it up where I would go do home incarceration at my mom and dad's house. And that was a little weird, 45 years old. I was going to go to mom and dad's house and move into their third bedroom and do that. And I was going over there the weekend before my sentence. I had problems with burglary and sentencing. Before I was going to go over there before my sentencing, uh, mom was back on the pain pills. And I knew I could not stay sober in that house. I couldn't do it. There's no way. With her having pain pills in that house, there's no way that I would have been able to stay sober. And my sponsor told me to pray on it and ask higher power to help me. I went in for my formal sentencing and they put my home address on the paperwork instead of there. And a couple things happened, a few other things happened like that where the universe started helping me. When I got my shit together and started aiming my sails at a different way of life, the universe started helping me get to where I was going. And I have this big long miracle list. And I look back at where for we say we don't believe in coincidences anymore, where our power, the universe, whatever, has helped me get to where I am today. And
Hmm.
all I had to do was set my sails in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've heard this really great quote recently. No such thing as coincidences. It's always a reason. It's for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
I like it.
And I like that too. It's like this is it's how I gauge sort of things. It's like this is either for a reason, this is maybe for a season of my life, or maybe this is actually meant to change the course of my life. And I believe that to be true for sure.
Yeah, me too. You see it too often. Did you hit
Yeah.
something that what happened to you that you decided, I mean, this may not be the case, but what happened to you that made you decide that you were gonna set your sails in a different direction?
A good question. Um, Look, to be honest, I just I've lived a pretty fortunate life, and I feel so lucky and to have the family that I grew up in and the place that I lived, and I just saw so much sort of how lucky I was, and I'm like I've got to help other people. That's why
So
I'm
you
here. I'm
didn't
here to
hit a
serve.
hard bottom.
No, honestly, my
You're
friend, and
fortunate.
and
You are
I'm
fortunate, brother.
and I feel like with that, it's like, well, then I've got no. I've been around. I've my family's come from all sorts of rugged backgrounds. And I go, shit, they've worked so hard to get to me to where I am today. And if I don't go out there and try to help people and just in whatever area of life that is, like that's why I'm here. You know, I'm here to serve other people through my art, through my writing, through everything. And and yeah, I feel lucky enough to have such a strong foundation to be able to do that from because I know so many people don't. And they're just trying to get the foundation right. And wherever you are on your journey, you know, it's like some people just need to find that foundation. And it's not about helping other people right now. You got to help yourself, you know. And I think now that I feel so lucky that I've been given a sort of foundation in my life, I'm like, well, I just got to help other people.
Yeah, that's fortunate. You're one of them guys that, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, that squirted through that didn't have to, because the majority of the people on my podcast have had some kind of alcoholic bottom, near death experience. I had a little wave of people come into my life that had near death experiences that woke them up, for lack of a better term. Uh, and you're a lucky dude to not have had that happen, but still have that laid on your heart because I think I look around and I see that a heart to help others, that's a essential thing to have what, and I don't like this word, but I use it anyway, a successful life. It's an essential element to having a good life. You got to want to help people. And if you don't have that in you, uh, you will fall short. And so I hear that in you, and without having had you know, an alcoholic bottom, that that's a bright spot in my life to hear a dude who has had that happen to him and didn't have to go through the hardship so many of us did.
And I bet, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of my friends who do struggle with alcoholism, they'd say they wouldn't change anything. It brought them to where they were today, you know? I think in every life, you know, however spotted your history is or clean or whatever you want to call that, I don't know, but I wouldn't change a thing that brought me to where I am today, right?
Amen.
Um, And to get to that place where you're grateful for everything, you know, the good, the bad, all of it. I mean, that feels like it's a place where then you can feel like you're ready to go out into the world and help, you know, in whatever way you do that.
Yep. And that's exactly where I feel like today. That's why I do this podcast. I have another one called the I Am One Two podcast, where me and my sponsor, uh, he's 40 years sober and is a uh, therapist in recovery. He works at a recovery center, and he's brought so much to my doorstep. And I wanted him to bring. I was like, we need to document some of what you are bringing to this table. And the majority of my life is I go out and handyman and I woodwork. That's my jobs. That's what I do to keep the lights on and the insurance paid and the car payment and the house payment and all that. But my life is based on this other deal where I'm helping other people be better versions of themselves day by day. And if I could get paid doing that, it don't pay very well. You might relate with that. It don't pay very well. So I do that other stuff, and I've been gifted with it. And I just have a bunch of dudes who are backing me up and helping and following through with helping other men be better men. And I've realized that one of the the biggest things in that is that these men are better fathers. And that means more to me than anything else I can talk about. That they are raising their children in a way that won't end up being in the way I am, in the way he is, in the way he is, in the way he is. Because I think we have a shitty parenting problem, more so than an addiction, homeless, very, you name out the stuff about where we're running wrong. And these guys are getting to raise their children in a way that warms my heart. I love it.
And I feel honored to be speaking with you today, and it seems that you're doing the work in order to break the cycle, right?
Break the
Not
cycle.
pa Yeah.
Yep.
And
It's
so,
not so much that they had terrible parenting. It's not necessarily that. That was less than adequate.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I have my 87-year-old father lives upstairs. He's a wonderful man. And he never, no place in my life can I think where he did anything wrong. Uh, but he did some things that trained me.
Right, right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I will forever love him, and I'll keep him here for as long as I can. Uh, I have a 21-year-old son that lives here with me, and I try to be a dad that he needs to be, and he seems to be doing okay. I have a 19-year-old daughter who has been struggling with fentanyl addiction, and I'll do what I can in that neighborhood. I can't fix her, but I can be a recovered dad that can give her pointers on how to not deal with that. And I watch these men I sponsor uh, father in a way that I wish I'd have been father.
It sounds like you're right where you need to be, you know?
Yep, yep. Uh, we we all have these opportunities to help other people, and if we can become awake to them, then we can implement into our being. Mm. It's a great thing to be able to be doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, your message is beautiful, man, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being a teacher for the people around you, and then also with the podcast, taking it worldwide and really just being a kind of an example, right? Which is all you can be, is an example. You can't change anyone. You can just be the example. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that too. And
Thank you.
again, I love to run. Might be a little overused, but uh, I continue to do these podcasts, and I run into guys like you who are a force for the good, who are out there trying to help other people be better people. And I want to elevate that the best I can. So thank you for being one of those men who are helping do that, because I believe that the light will always overcome the dark. And as long as guys like you and me continue to do what we're doing, uh, we will overcome the dark.
Yeah, it's my privilege. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. This will come out next weekend, Sunday morning at 6 a.m. And but good time. I love this thing where I'm talking to people from across the continent,
It's so good.
And I will grab up your stuff. If I need any additional information, I'll ask you and get your stuff in the show notes. And we will, and at any time you want to talk again, holler. I'm open to it.
Yeah, likewise. Hey, Dan, it's so great to hear your story. And can I just say that, you know, there's I think there's a real crisis of kind of male role models out in the world right now. You know, a lot about the male leaders at the moment, and I don't want to make it an agenda thing, but I think specifically, I think we're aware of it. There's not some many great examples, I know, but not focusing on that and choosing to focus on what you are in the world, I mean, that's priceless. And I'm sure everyone in your immediate community and elsewhere, I know I'm feeling it right now. I'm so grateful for that. So thank you.
I agree with you 100%. I'll send you a Zoom link to my 10-year anniversary tomorrow night if you want to join.
Yeah, if I'm around, I'll do that. I'll be there. That's awesome.
All right.
Congratulations, man.
Great talking to you. And again, thank you for being a force for the good and being out there trying to help this crazy world be a better place.
Thank you. And likewise. All right.